Duh, boards, bro. Boards. If you guys are watching this video and like my content, please just subscribe. It's super easy, allows me to do all this stuff for free, and it allows me to know how I'm doing. Some of you may think that I'm crazy that you can score over a 240 on the USMLE Step 2 CK, the clinical knowledge portion, with studying for less than a month. Well, I think you're crazy for thinking that I'm crazy for thinking that you'd be able to do that. No, but seriously, trust me. When you've already done Step 1 and that portion of the USMLE and learned all of that pathological information and diagnostic criteria, you're definitely going to be way beyond the curve and already really prepared for something like Step 2, when the majority of the examination is figuring out what the next best step is going to be for diagnosing a pathology. So before you go down a dark spiraling depression of why you have to take another huge board examination during medical school, let me tell you that this is going to be not too hard. You can definitely do this, and in less than a month, study enough to really do well on the Step 2. For those of you who don't already know how you learn best, you better figure that out pretty soon, because you should have figured that out for Step 1. You also should have figured that out before medical school. I mean, Jesus, how did you get in the first place? Figuring out how you learn and how you memorize a lot of information is the best first step. Examples that I like to use and that work really well for me is making mnemonics, really stupid ideas, and drawing out pictures for things that I think would help me remember something. Yeah, that's right. This means you might have to look like an idiot with a bunch of colored markers or crayons or whatever the hell it is that you're going to use to color up a sheet of paper with drawings in order for you to figure out like a little picture and memorize things. Maybe the type of person who uses a lot of flashcards and can draw the question on one side and then a vignette or some sort of clinical picture of the answer on the other side, which is what I used to do a lot in order to memorize some things that I wouldn't remember when I'm going through a question bank. Next, you've got to figure out one place where you're going to put all of your information. Now, I hate it when people use a lot of different books in order to memorize a bunch of stuff for a board exam or for an examination coming up, because I think it really leaves you a little bit scatterbrained and it takes way more time to review multiple different books when you could have put all that information in one place. For example, during Step 1, I used my first aid for the USMLE Step 1 in order to consolidate all of my information on all of my board relevant study material. That way I only had to read one book before going into my exam. I had one book for everything. I even put in the drawings from Pathoma into that book. I didn't use Pathoma on its own. I didn't want to use all that scratch organic material that I was using while watching his videos into that book because I knew I wanted to keep everything in one place. Therefore, for Step 2, I really think you should do the same. There's 3 different resources that you can use for big book consolidation. Online MedEd has some online PDFs that you can use and download and print those off and have a binder, which is what I did, and sort of flip through those in order to consolidate all of your information in one place. That's super helpful because he's got a lot of really good diagrams, a lot of good next best step right answers that will definitely show up on your Step 2. Taolei coming in hot with the first aid authors over at University of Louisville. I don't even know who the other authors are. Kudos to them. They made an amazing book the first time. The second time, they also made a great book, The First Aid for USMLE Step 2 CK. You can also use that to consolidate all of your information. I personally chose not to use that book. That does not mean that it's not a great book, because I'm sure it's got all the information that you need to use. In fact, I really know it does because I did flip through it. I looked at one of my friends and decided just to stick with online MedEd. The third book that you can use is Master the Boards for Step 2, which is also another fantastic source. And I believe it's by That Pretty Chill book by Conrad Fisher. Shout out to you, boy. Awesome book as well. I know a lot of my friends who've used that book. In fact, it sounds like there's a little bit of a preference of using that over the first aid authors. Although, again, really doesn't matter what book you use. Just keep all of your stuff consolidated. That's really important. If somebody asks me to do a Kaplan question bank one more time, I swear to God, I'm just going to quit medicine. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad question bank, but it's just not going to hit the board relevant stuff as often or as accurately as something like UWorld. UWorld definitely started off as actually a Step 2 question bank and then started doing Step 1 stuff, and therefore is an excellent resource for you to use in order to train, use questions, practice for questions that are really going to be similar on your actual board exam. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be using another question bank or some sort of other resource in order for you to practice for the USMLE Step 2, but if you're just using 1 month the way that I did in order to study for this exam, you're really going to want to just stick with one question bank and drill the crap out of it. In fact, some of my friends are like, dude, aren't you just memorizing the questions? And I'm like, yeah, Why wouldn't I be memorizing these questions? It's pretty much going to be exactly how my exam's going to be. Now that's obviously an exaggeration, but I'm just saying, if you're memorizing those questions, memorizing the presentation, the clinical vignette, how the right answer is right, how the wrong answers are wrong, you're going to get really any variation of those types of questions on your exam correct. It's called practice makes perfect. Duh. I am a firm believer in trying to create study groups and finding friends who have certain cheat sheets or another way to explain to you a certain diagram or some sort of topic that you may have some trouble with. Now, if it's really hard for you to make friends because you're an egotistical medical student who really just doesn't want to talk to anybody, suck to suck, but try to become friendlier and become more social so that you can ask some friends in case that's one of the techniques you want. Because I really think that group studying really keeps you on your toes, really keeps you prepared to answer questions and rapid fire topics off of knowing each other, and also just gives you another way to explain things that you wouldn't otherwise know. I mean, another way to do that is also to find videos in certain topics online, using certain resources that you can find either on YouTube or other ways that you can pay for it. But really, I think if you can just find some people to help study, that would be super helpful and free. Last but not least, chill out. Learn how you're going to just turn off and relax and de-stress before your examination on the day of, the day before, because, well, most of you, I'm sure, are super stressed out, but step 1's already over. You've got step 2 CK and your clinical skills portion coming up. This part is not that hard. You got this. You're here for a reason. Just study hard and good luck.